Okay, so picture this. You get home and the day just keeps going and going. Work, errands, maybe even, dealing with the kids. And the last thing you want to do is spend hours on some recipe, right? But takeout again. I don't think so. Thankfully, the stuff you sent over is all about these one-pot meals, and the one that really caught my eye uses sweet potatoes, rice, and pasta. And what got me interested wasn't just, how easy it is, but the fact that we're going to get to talk about the sweet potato itself. It's a Thanksgiving, well, like a classic for Thanksgiving, but it actually has a pretty interesting history.
Yeah, it's really interesting how sweet potatoes ended up, on the Thanksgiving table because it wasn't like a direct path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This root, it's originally from Central and South America, and it didn't really become popular here in the U.S. until the 1800s.
Hold on, so you're telling me the Pilgrims, they weren't passing around sweet potato casserole at the first Thanksgiving?
Wow.
That's kind of blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising, right? Sweet potatoes, they were like a big deal in the South way earlier,
Mm.
because they're pretty easy to grow and they're really good for you. But it took a while for the whole country to like embrace them as a Thanksgiving tradition. And even that marshmallow, sweet potato casserole thing, that didn't come about till much later.
Now that you mention it, I do remember reading something about like a marketing campaign or something.
Exactly. In the early 1900s, this marshmallow company, they started pushing the idea of, you know, throwing marshmallows on top of sweet potato casserole and well, you know how it goes, the rest is history. It's really a great example of how like what we eat can be influenced by, well, by people trying to sell us stuff.
That really makes you wonder what other dishes, what we eat all the time, have been, shaped by some clever marketing. Talk about food for thought, right? But for now, let's get back to this one-pot recipe. It seems like the perfect thing for those crazy weeknights.
Oh, for sure. One pot cooking, it's all about like keeping things simple and efficient. You just toss all the ingredients. So in this case, it's sweet potatoes, rice, pasta, and seasonings. Throw it all in one pot and let it simmer until it's, perfect.
And speaking of the ingredients, this recipe is packed with good stuff, too.
Yeah.
We've got carbs from the sweet potatoes, rice, and pasta, plus fiber and protein. And the stuff you sent over even mentions ways to get even more protein in there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really like about this recipe. You can like adapt it, it's a really solid base that you can change up to fit, different diets and preferences.
Now, for those listening who like to, get creative in the kitchen, this is where it gets really interesting. The source material has all these cool tips for customizing the recipe, and it all starts with the grains. It suggests swapping out the rice and pasta for other things like quinoa, farro, or barley. Have you tried any of those?
Oh yeah, I have. I'm a big fan of farro. It has this nice chewy texture and this nutty flavor that goes so well with the sweet potato. And then there's quinoa. It's a lot lighter and fluffier. It's a totally different experience. It's really all about, experimenting and seeing what you like best.
I love that each grain kind of brings something different to the party. It's like having three different dishes in one. And then there's the broth. I mean, choosing the right broth can really make or break a dish, right?
Absolutely. The recipe says to use vegetable or chicken broth, but you can totally like think outside the box here. Imagine that earthy flavor a mushroom broth would add, or how rich it would be with bone broth.
Now I'm getting hungry. And while we're on the subject of flavor, we can't forget about protein. The material mentions adding shredded chicken, beans, tofu, even seafood.
Adding protein is a great way to make this, a full meal. And again, it's all about what you like. Lentils, they'd be great for a vegetarian option, and then shrimp would add this like nice briny flavor.
So many possibilities. But wait, there's more. The source material, it actually outlines 5 completely different flavor variations for this dish.
Five flavor variations. Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more.
All right, so we've got a Southwest Fiesta. It uses black beans and corn. Then there's an Italian urban cheese. That one uses sun-dried tomatoes and Parmesan. And we've got an Asian-inspired fusion with, soy sauce and sesame oil. Oh, and a Mediterranean medley. It uses artichoke hearts and feta. And last but not least, there's a smoky BBQ style. That one uses, well, what else? BBQ sauce. It's really amazing how you can start with just one recipe and turn it into so many different dishes.
Yeah, it really shows how versatile this one pot idea is. It's like you've got this blank canvas and you can just, go wild.
So out of those five, which one do you think you try first?
Oh, that's a tough one. They all sound so good. But I think I'd probably go for the Mediterranean medley. I just love how bright and fresh Mediterranean flavors are, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when you combine artichoke hearts, olives, and feta cheese.
I was kind of thinking about that one too. I can just imagine the feta, all melty and tangy with the warm sweet potatoes and pasta.
And the herbs, oregano, parsley, maybe a little red pepper flakes for some kick. It would add so much flavor to the dish.
Okay, yeah, we're definitely putting that one on the must-try list. But before we get, too carried away dreaming about Mediterranean food, let's talk about some practical stuff that might come up for people listening.
Yeah, good point. Practicality is like essential when you're trying to get dinner on the table during the week.
For sure. Okay, so first things first, can you make this recipe vegan? I know a lot of people are, trying to eat more plant-based these days.
Definitely. The base recipe is already plant-based, so making it vegan is super easy. Just use vegetable broth instead of chicken broth and don't use any dairy toppings.
That's great news for our vegan listeners. Now, what about leftovers? Can you freeze this?
Oh, absolutely. One-pot meals they're perfect for freezing. Just portion them out into, freezer-safe containers once they've cooled down.
I love having like a homemade meal ready to go in the freezer.
Yeah.
Like it's like a gift to your future self. Okay, last question. This came up in the source material. What if someone doesn't really like sweet potatoes? Are there any good substitutes?
Yeah, there are definitely options. Butternut squash would be a great swap. It has that same sweetness and texture. You could also just use regular potatoes or you could even try other root vegetables like parsnips or turnips.
I love how flexible this recipe is. It's like a choose your own adventure, but with food.
Yeah.
It really seems like this recipe, it proves that, you don't need to make things complicated to have a delicious and healthy meal. And what I really like is that it kind of pushes you to experiment and make it your own.
Yeah, totally. It's like we're not just, following instructions anymore. We're thinking about flavors and what we can swap out. We're really like getting into the ingredients.
Exactly. It's gone from what are we having for dinner to what kind of food adventure are we going on tonight?
Speaking of adventures, I got to know, have you thought about what you'd add to this one pot meal, to make it your own?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'd probably add some spice. Maybe some diced jalapenos or a little sprinkle of red pepper flakes.
Yeah, a little heat would definitely like add another layer of flavor. I'm all about texture, so I might try adding some toasted nuts or seeds, for some crunch.
Oh, that's a great idea. I bet some toasted pumpkin seeds would be amazing with the sweet potatoes. This is what I love about doing these deep dives. We uncover so much more than just, a recipe. We learn about the history and the nutrition and it's fun to experiment in the kitchen.
It's a good reminder that cooking is like a journey. It's not just about the end result. And sometimes the best meals are the ones we make ourselves.
Yeah.
The ones where we take what we know and use our creativity to turn simple ingredients into something really special.
So to wrap things up, let's give our listeners a challenge. We talked about all these different variations and what you can swap out and all the different flavor profiles. Now it's your turn to get creative in the kitchen. Think about what you'd add to this one pot wonder to make it, uniquely yours. Would you go for like a flavor explosion or maybe a texture adventure or maybe even like a fusion of different cooking styles?
Don't be afraid to experiment. That's how amazing dishes are created.
And who knows, you might just discover your new favorite weeknight dinner.
Until next time, happy cooking.